Hello! So as you may know, my novel, Me and Gepe, is available now at Barnes & Noble and Amazon. And I thought I'd do another reading for you today.
Down with the establishment! Down with the establishment!
We don't want you anymore!
Ready? Alright. Every fall, the city of Audubon would set aside a day for its over-consuming citizens to unclutter their houses of all the crud not collected by the regular routes. Mostly bigger debris like broken refrigerators and blood-stained mattresses, but also smaller junk like busted lawnmowers and treadless tires. On the city's official website, the event was called Cleanup Day, though the evening before, when all the trash made its way to the curb, was heralded inside the Rodriguez household as El Dia de Cosas Libres, because every year, Padre and Hijo would band together in a borrowed truck and ride around the neighborhood scavenging for slightly damaged furniture to add new dimension to their dilapidated address, or, just as often, to replace the rundowns they already had. Technically, what they were doing was illegal, which is why my parents had always forbidden me from participating, lest I were to get pinched and have dumpster diving forever etched into my record. But this year, when the date in late September rolled around, I was still smarting from my almost with Angela, and I frankly didn't give a damn about what my creators feared. I was tired of not being able to aid and abet my amigo in his garbage quest for a better life, and I didn't care what my punishment would be if they happened to find out. And so on the after school in question, me and Gepe hoofed it straight to his house and held our horses while his padre pumped us full of beefy enchiladas and an incredible energy drink of his own concoction, which, judging from the fire it inflamed in my throat and my sudden desire to grow a mustache, consisted of way more than a drop of tequila. Shortly thereafter, we heard our unrented chariot arrive in the alley. As the guest, I got first crack at the bathroom, and when I was through, Gepe's father charged me with schmoozing our chauffeur while he and his son finished cleaning the kitchen and gathering supplies. Because my amigo had already doled out the details on our driver, his name was Henry Durant and he was a contractor, the very same from whom El Senior picked up extra work after his long hours at the hardware store left him many dollars short. I was naturally expecting to find some pot-bellied gray hair who had no intention of coming out from behind the wheel of his dinosaur diesel, except to make sure we didn't add another dent. But instead, when I stepped onto the stoop, I was greeted by a buoyant, medium-built moza who gave me a pleasantly surprise as she rolled up the tarp over the bed of her just off the lot. "Howdy," she said, adjusting her flannel shirt. She was also wearing baggy blue jeans and a pair of well-trodden boots, an altogether rugged look, leading me to wonder if she hadn't just crawled out of the woods. "You Gepe?" "His friend Richie," I said, stepping down to her. "We're not gay." She snickered, sending her gaze from my head to foot. "Wouldn't have thought." "Sorry, it's just, I'm Jill Durant." She put out her hand, so I shook it. Her grip is firmer than I'd expected, even in light of her apparel, and for several seconds after, I had to stretch my knuckles out behind my back. "So what's your pleasure?" What do you mean?" "For me, it's family, friends, and my old horse Walt." I nodded. "Family, I guess, and Gepe, and books. I read a lot, and truth." "The truth? Now there's an answer you don't hear often. So you don't lie?" "Lying's different. That's about knowing one thing and saying the opposite. Truth is about what is and isn't, well, true." She made a face as if gearing up to spit on me. "So is that a yes or a no?" "I've lied," I said in an effort to keep myself dry. "But I don't like to." "Why's that, you think?" "I don't know. It just seems wrong." She placed her hands in her pockets and crossed one foot over the other, and then just stood there, as though there were nothing more important in the world than attending to my answer. I was taken aback, for Gepe was the only other person who'd ever displayed as much interest in what I had to say, and even he would rather listen to himself. Still, after clearing my throat, I tossed out some additional thoughts, perhaps a bit clumsily. It's like when you lie, you wind up creating a false reality, which, like, the person you lied to, if they believed you, is now living in. But the problem is, the truth is still out there, which means later they might run into it. And if it's a big lie, that could mean that their entire reality could unravel, which really isn't fair to them. So, yeah. She mugged for another moment, absorbing the answer, then tapped her temple with genuine import. "A thinker. Explains why I ain't seen you around. Been devoting your free time to contemplating the workings of the universe." I shrugged. I just don't get asked to many parties. So, you go to Patriot? Loud and proud, then, without warning, she grabbed my bicep and gave it a squeeze, really working her fingers into the fibers. Somebody's been working out. Now it was my time to snicker. At the Y, or at least I used to. Used to? I glanced over my shoulder at the house. There was an incident. Come with me, and she gave my arm a tug, leading me to the rear of the truck, where she explained a problem with the coupler of the trailer she was towing. Apparently the latch that held the coupler secure to the ball was bent, and rubbing so hard against its own assembly that it wouldn't go down. She tried taking a hammer to it, but on the second swing she pushed it past the hole where the pin was supposed to go, and now she couldn't get it up again. So what do you say? Want to give her a shot? I scratched my head, glancing at her shoulders, which appeared to be at least as muscular as my own. Well, if you couldn't do it. I'll take that as a compliment, though I ain't sure it was meant as one. She winked and ran her fingers along my back as she made her way around me. Why don't you climb into the bed and I'll go snag a hammer? Half-heartedly, I did as I was told, grabbing onto the end gate and climbing onto the bumper, then swinging my legs over one at a time until I was 3 feet taller and none the wiser about what I was supposed to be doing. When she returned, however, and hooked the claw inside the latch, I got down on my knees and reached for the handle. My first jerk went nowhere, and so did the second, so I readjusted, bringing my chest down against the end gate as a kind of brace. Careful now, she warned as she held the pin beside the hole. Thanks. I mean it. That's my favorite hammer you're holding. I chuckled, and took a breath, then recurled my fingers around the rubber grip. On the mental count of 3, I closed my eyes and pulled as hard as I could. For a split second, nothing happened. Then all at once, the lock unloosened. My arms went flying, and my whole body fell over backwards into the bed. Ouch! Got her, she said, presumably referring to the pin. As I sat up and looked over the side, I saw her grinning at me. You know, you and me, we make a pretty good team. She lowered her eyes a bit. Where's my hammer? I stared at my empty hands, then around inside the bed. I don't know. After another few seconds of both of us searching for it, I finally gazed upward at the tree above me. There was the hammer, its red handle dangling from one of the branches. Guiltily, I glanced in Jill's direction. She had already drawn her thick, wavy brown hair back and was having a look. I was expecting to see her spit face again, but instead she shrugged her shoulders and laughed. Guess I'll be having to find someone else to hammer with, and again she winked at me. Just then, Heppy and his father exited the house carrying a bunch of equipment. Gloves, bungee cords, blankets, etc., along with a bag full of treats and a Gatorade for each of us. At the sight of Jill, El Senior began asking pointed questions in Espanol, all in rapid succession, allowing no time for anyone to answer. Who knows how long it might have gone on if Heppy hadn't kicked out an Irish jig, confusing his father, and me for that matter, and causing him to stumble over his own palabras until at last he was silent. Despite all the nonsense, Jill never flinched, and when it was over she jumped at the chance to explain who she was and why her father wasn't coming. But don't you worry, sir, she added affirmatively. I'm more than capable and eager to help. El Senior issued some further complaints, mostly about her sex and inexperience relative to the size of the truck, all of which my amigo cheerfully countered by reminding him of how he, El Senior, was too afraid to even drive. Begrudgingly, his padre conceded the point. Then the two of them loaded their equipment into the bed of the truck and one by one climbed into the rear of the cab, as though the seating arrangement had been assigned by the gods. Jill grinned, digging out her keys. Guess you're riding shotgun. Think you can handle her? And that, my friends, was a reading from Me and Gepe, a novel by Wolfgang Wright.
Down with the establishment. Down with the establishment.
We don't want you anymore.
Down with the establishment. Down with the establishment.
We're gonna kick you out the door.